it's dictatorship to a certain degree. Everyone has the same. Everyone's entitled to exactly the same, but you're not allowed to be above the person next to you. But who made that rule in the first place? Someone who then
Exactly.
put them
But this is the folly of communism.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's why communism doesn't work. Besides taking out the human aspect of
But
people,
is freedom of speech going to work?
does freedom of speech work?
Yeah.
When freedom of speech is actually freedom of speech, yes, it does work.
So
I think the misconception that we have here, though, is people don't understand the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of consequence. In my opinion, I was speaking to a good friend of mine about this. You cannot have freedom of speech without allowing everything that can be said to be said. The difference here is, if someone says something that is outrageous or offensive or hurtful, there should be a obligation to respond.
offensive to who?
See, this is why I say this point. If someone says, let's put it into the layman terms that make it simple, we can all generally, besides maybe a depraved percentage, agree that Nazi ideology is an awful thing.
No, I disagree with that.
Well, you retract that statement.
No, I'm not. No. I know the point, and my reasoning is very left wing. Sorry to interrupt. Is I dated a German for 7 years. My dad has dated a German for 12 years. The things that they get taught from school and their whole life is very different to what we do.
But that's maybe. I know from my understandings, the German teaching of that period of time is very different to ours. But that's a semantic point.
Yeah.
We are still for the sake of this point, we understand that this is a bad thing. So we could objectively look and go, right, you can say whatever you like, just don't say that.
Yeah.
Well, I would argue, when it comes to freedom of speech, that the minute you start imposing any law or any regulation as to what someone can say on any front, you then begin to open up the question for everything else that is said. Now, my argument here would be, if we put it on a scale of, you've got horrendously offensive and what everyone deems to be offensive things, such as Nazism, on the left, and the benign insult of someone saying, you insert whatever trivial, oh, I can't believe you said that, that's so offensive, comment on this side. Well, on an objective sense and a logical one, you can distinguish these two things. You can go,
course,
that
100%.
is absolutely hateful and hurtful, this is trivial.
Yeah.
But who are you to distinguish that difference? I would argue, to a point, if someone is offended by something, irrespective of how you feel about it, that is offensive. And on that basis, why should you, as the person who it's not affecting, be the one who determines the value of that offence? If someone is offended by something that you deem to be offensive, and someone else is offended by something you deem not to be offensive, who are you to distinguish the difference? And the point that I would make with that is, when you begin to say you can't say this, you can say that, you open up a whole new question
100%.
as to what can and can't be said. And it comes from a biased perspective. What happens if, just to make the point, a neo-Nazi is the one making the regulation? Well, they're not going to put Nazism as something you can't say, because they're fine with that. Now, of course, we should hope that no one is in a position of power with those ideologies. But the point is to make it crude for the sake of the point. Rules are made by a person who has their own opinions and their own biases, and on that,